Greetings all, Shane Bruce, Restomod Daisy. Today we're going to do a video about the last step of working on these curly maple gun stocks I build for Daisy products. We've already got a video out about how you develop the stain that you're going to use on your projects. And now we're going to get to the point where we're going to finish with oil. Now, let's take a close look at this. You'll notice that everything on this stock is whiskered. Nothing's been knocked down during the dye process. I do that on purpose to allow the grain to stand so that the dye can penetrate as deeply as possible. And when we go to put our oil on it, we're going to do the same thing. Now, here in Restomod, we use Danish Oil. It's available from a variety of manufacturers. This particular box or bottle is a Rust-Oleum product. It came from a local big box store. The reason I like to use the Danish oil is because it has a faster drying rate than straight tongue oil or linseed oil. You can put it on and you won't have to wait years and decades for the oil to dry out sufficiently to get on with your finishing product or finishing the product you're working on. So, like most products of this nature, it's got volatiles in it. There's little mineral spirits. Danish oil is a mixture of tongue oil, linseed oil, and some mineral spirits, and some other secret sauce stuff that varies from manufacturer to manufacturer. So give it a shake. And you pour a wee bit into a small flat dish. I use this, as you can see, well-used plastic dish. It's served us for a number of years so far. Now, because it is Danish oil and it's got volatiles in it, you should not drink it or sniff it or toss it in your eyes. Treat it carefully. It's also, because of the mineral spirits, capable of flashover. So you'll need to dispose of the gloves and wipe-down rags that you might use with this product once you're done to avoid flash fire incidences. It's also a good idea to wear gloves when you apply the oil. I don't use a brush or a sponge. I just use my fingertips on my particular application. It works well for me. Now, one thing I like about Danish oil and maple that's finished or not finished, but that is prepped for oil, is you can actually watch the oil suck into the wood when you apply it. So it's a pretty simple process. Shake your oil up, put it in a dispensing tray that you can get to it. I like to throw down a little piece of cardboard just to make sure that I don't slop oil unnecessarily. Take a couple of fingers, dip it in there and rub it on. Now you can see as you apply the oil, now the grain pattern is really starting to show through. And what we'll do is apply oil to the forearm and to the buttstock. And I'll probably do that 3 to 4 times before we do our final oil coat that we will apply with a piece of 320 sandpaper so that we can knock down these nibs. Now you notice how the nibs, we'll give it a little second there. See how it just kind of sucks in? And that's why I leave the grain or the whiskers standing so that there is an easy access point. And this oil is a penetrating oil as well, so it's basically formulated to make sure it gets into the grain. It's not just a surface treatment. It goes into the wood, gets under the surface of the wood. See how much is sucked in through the stripes already. You can see where the just applied oil has virtually disappeared as soon as we put it on there. And that's the reason that I put on so many coats, because it takes a while to load this surface up with enough oil to get the penetration down low so that the oil continues to pull the stain down, and also so the oil penetrates the wood itself. Now, Danish oil is a little bit different than poly. Poly is pretty much a surface treatment, although there are some penetrating polys out there. Tongue oil, linseed oil, Danish oil, which is a combination of the two with some solvents, actually gets into the wood itself. Now, there's a polymerization agent present in the formulation that will assist the oil in drying out, and you'll get a nice firm waterproof protective layer when you're done, but it will still be flexible enough to absorb a dent or a scratch and be easily repairable. Some poly finishes, if you scratch them or chip them, and over time you'll probably have noticed this in other types of gun stocks, where a surface crack or a surface chip developed into a large crack. Now, whether or not you want to do this, I think it's a good idea. We do it, and that is go ahead and oil the inside of the stock as well. It's not going to get finish sanded, but you do want to have some waterproofing, some protection for the wood on the inside. And on these forearm pieces and these daisies, this wood's pretty thin, so we want to give it all the strength it can get, all the toughness it can tolerate, because gun stocks get used. BB gun stocks get abused. And that's because their normal user is typically a small lad or ladette, and they're not all that concerned about maintenance and care of the weapon itself. They want to have fun, so they shoot it. And to shoot it, you got to handle it. And to handle it, from time to time, you probably drop it. So here we have our surface finish. As you can see, the original oil coat is pretty much gone. So we'll go ahead and slap a little bit more on this side before we move to the buttstock. Now this process will probably be repeated, at least 3 times, maybe 4. Depends on what the wood does. You know, how it looks in 2 more applications will determine in large part if I go 3 or 4. But I'd like to, on my last application, see that oil staying there for a while. And that tells me that it's gotten saturated down below the surface level, and I'm getting the kind of stuff going on that I want. So after you get your first piece done, you usually take a couple of support pieces. That way I've got something to sit the work on while I'm working on the next piece. So that's our forearm, and as you can see, it's a radically different look than the non-oiled just stained piece. Got really good fiddle in that forearm. That's going to be beautiful. All right, same process with the buttstock. There's more of it, so it takes a little longer to do. But you can see the grain patterns coming out as soon as you start putting the oil on it. And this is really the first time, if you're working with maple, in the process and evolution of this stock that we're actually going to see what kind of fiddle it's got. Now, it had a lot of promise when I picked it out as a blank, and it looked really good during the finishing stages. But you never really know what you got until you get your dye on it and then start putting oil on it. That tells you, or will show you, how the chatoyance is going to work. And that's not looking shabby at all. That's going to be pretty presentable. So anyway, you just continue to put it on. Make sure you get good coverage. The wood will allow you to let you see what it's doing. And we'll do this for the first coat. And we're getting close to being done on coat number 1. This is one of the processes in making stocks. It takes a while. It's not something you knock out in 20 minutes, bang, you're finished. Now, I imagine you could do that if you wanted to use a nondescript straight grain wood like, any hardwood or softwood for that matter. You could use poplar, you could use pine, you could use whatever fell down in the backyard. If you're going to paint it, it doesn't matter what it looks like underneath. Just get it formed up, shaped, painted, bang, you're done. But I really like curly maple. And I think it's a traditional American rifle wood, which is why I'd use it. These guns, the Daisies, are first rifles. I mean, they're typically the first gun you'll get your mitts on. It's going to be a BB gun, unless you've got a really wild man of a father who'll turn you loose with a powder burner right away. Mine was kind of wild, but it was still a bit of a far run for him. Didn't happen. Got a Daisy 94 for my first one, way back in the day. And I love that rifle. I fired the snot out of it. Still got it. Haven't messed with it like I do these guns, but I still have it. I think it's important. So, as you can see, we're gradually moving around the rest of the stock here. Now, this is not as vibrant as I had hoped it would be, but it's still pretty vibrant. You can see some flare. You can see some grain. You can see the character of the wood. And figured wood, I believe, to be superior for rifle purposes over straight grain, just because it looks better. I mean, a working gun gets a lot of use and a lot of abuse, but the reality for all of them is that most of them stay wherever they're racked. They're all safe queens for the bulks of their lives, because we're not an active firearms nation like we used to. You don't have to have your rifle to go out and check the cattle. You don't have to have your long gun in case you run across a squirrel on your way to wherever you're going, because food being food is hard to get to, hard to find, and should be advantaged when you find it. Now here on the buttstock, you can really watch it just suck straight in, because that's just straight fiber exhaust. Look at that. Just put it on, it goes away. Put it on, it goes away. And that is the action of the wood fiber pulling the oil down inside the structure itself. So we'll take a look at this side. That's looking pretty good. We're going to go ahead and slap another coat on it already, because it's already sucked it in. And we want to get plenty of load in there. Make sure every little wood fiber gets however much oil it wants. Where there's no shortage of Danish oil, we can give it all it needs so that we get a good, solid, penetrating coat. Now, the last phase of the operation, after we've done this 3 or 4 more times, is we will get after it with our final coat with some 320 grit sandpaper. And the reason we're going to use the 320 is to go ahead and knock these whiskers down and get the surface the way we like it to be, which is nice and smooth. I mean, a good looking gun stock is one thing, but anything that your hand touches while in the process of working with your favorite Daisy is important. So, you know, the feel is just as important as the look. And I believe that the stock, when you're got your mitts on it, ought to feel nice and buttery smooth. And this particular oil finish combined with this particular wood, combined with this particular die set, really yields a nice product. All right, so now we have gotten to the stop part where we have to wait for the oil to dry, or not dry actually, but just completely absorb. So we're going to go ahead and hit the pause button, and we'll be back in a moment.